working on drainage and trying to get a bunch of stuff, it was a floodplain in there, so they've been working on that. The other new ones that I know of were Matt Sturgis and Sophia Erickson, and they own the lot just south of Mike Hawkins, where all the trees and the creek runs through.
North,
And
north of Mike.
north of Mike Hawkins, I'm sorry, and I think it's up for sale again. I think they have a parent or something that's, they're gonna have to move and spend time there with them, so. That's the new stuff I know going on so far. We'll do the secretary report. Anything to report?
No, sir.
How about the treasurer report?
I do. You want me to come there, or maybe I can send some food before you know shit out of me.
You can be in front of the table, that way we can hear you.
I'll stand here, because Mitch needs me to stand close. Okay, as of the end of September, the third quarter, our beginning balance was $70,253.17. We had dues that came in of $5,001, and our water expenses were $147, electricity $133.13, labor $2,405, fuel $261.51, sprinkler parts $76.31, sand for the runway $6,150, library room rental $100, and water leak repair on the sprinklers $1,098.21, and so the expenses for the third quarter were $10,371.16, and that brings our ending balance to $64,883.01. And then as to year of date, I'm not going to read every itemized thing. For the beginning balance for the year was $51,226.53. We had dues that come in $41,513. Expenses so far this year $29,275.76, and our ending balance is $63,463.77.
Any questions? Motion for approval of the treasury report?
I move to approve.
You said?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the treasury report has been approved. The only thing I've got as far as the architectural review, who's on that is John Burton and Michael Scalafani. I think they may both be out of town right now. And I think the only project was the Steigers and the plat plan. I haven't seen the building plan yet for the hangar, but the plot plan that they proposed and where they're gonna put stuff complies with all the requirements of the HOA, so I think they're just moving forward on that. He is connected, if you knew who Frank Young was, he was a pilot in Continental I worked with for a long time. That's his grandson, and I don't understand all the genealogy there, but that he's connected there. And I think he has, in Conroe, he's got a twin Comanche as well, so he's got several airplanes. Old business, fire ants, oh my gosh. We were gone for 4 weeks. I did get the runway and the taxiways treated before I left. Trying to find some dry weather was the challenge. And then while we were gone, it seemed like it was wet as well. And anytime you get after a drought and it starts to rain, guess what? They pop up, and we've got fire ants all over the place. So we've got fire ant bait available, extinguished, and we also have orange oil. And if you've got a garden and you've got fire ants in it, you can put the orange oil in there, and it's non-toxic, and it does work. You just use a drench method. But I know it's supposed to rain this next week again, but as soon as I get 3 dry days, I'll be out there dispersing fire ant bait. And we just got, it's gonna be one of those maintenance items that never goes away unless they figure out how to eradicate fire ants. I do not like them. I have several of the bites on me right now. HOA storage maintenance facility location design. I was hoping we'd be done with that or have a location. We finally came up with an idea, and I think we'll move forward with it. It'll solved two problems, enclosing the water well area with a small little building that'll have storage with it. It's not gonna be very high, it just has to be high enough so you can get access to the water tank, and then we'll put mower storage and equipment storage on the side of it. And then the other thing that'll solve is it'll winterize the well. So I'll have to put a little heater or light bulb in there, and it'll protect all the instrumentation from the wear and tear on that. So we've got electricity, we've got water there, so those two combinations will work well for HOA storage. And I think we're gonna move forward with that. Runway taxiway maintenance, we put 410 yards of sand on so far. We got the crown basically sanded. It's probably gonna take at least that much more to start feathering it out along the sides to get it smoothed out. I'm still a little curious with all the moisture we've had to see how much buckling we have, because it was just so dry. And that's just the nature of the black gumbo that we have. But the sanding is helping, and we'll continue to do that. The other plan is to get some of the taxiways sanded, so the taxiways will get some sand. I got some on one of them, and we'll try to get, there's just, they've buckled, and the one just north of Herman's is like a rodeo evidently there, so we'll see if we can get some of that straightened out. Runway watering system, we've talked about this for years. We're gonna move on that. If you wonder why our balances are as high as they are, I've tried to conserve the cash so that when we do get the installation and the bids done, then we can just pay cash for it without having to do an assessment. That's been the goal. HOAs aren't supposed to bankroll or have that much money in their accounts. They're supposed to use it for what is called for maintenance, but when you have a capital expenditure such as a watering system going in, that's been my goal. So hopefully we'll be able to get that done. We're gonna request bids for installation. They'll go through board approval, because I certainly don't have the authority to spend that kind of money at all. So we'll go through board approval. We'll make sure everybody's informed of what's gonna take place there. Mike Rawls, John Burden, Rusty Rasco have been taking care of runway watering, moving it and stuff like that. They're being paid by the hour for that work because somebody has to do it. We had to do a fair amount of maintenance to the sprinkler system by replacing the head and doing some other things there. We'll do some winter maintenance again on that, and that's what we're using at the moment. Hopefully we'll still have access if we need it down the road for that, once we get a watering system in. That'll alleviate that a little bit. Social committee hasn't been a whole lot going on there that I know of, but we need to get some functions together for that, and we'll see how that goes. The mower's been operating pretty well. Had to do some minor maintenance on it with some leaks here and there. It's shown its age a little bit, but it's still operating relatively well. We've had Lexi Shannon running it for us. That may change this year as she's going to be going to school, Huntsville full-time, and she's working on her flying ratings. So we may be finding somebody else to help with the mowing. I'll do some of it when I can, and we'll continue down that process. The water sprinkler system maintenance for the tank, well, that's different. Already talked about that one. The water tank, we did get it rebuilt, basically. It needed to be overhauled. Those are supposed to have a pressure test every 5 years. We were probably at 15 years before it had been tested. So that was a little bit expensive to get it done, but they come in and sandblast the inside, clean up all the corrosion, do a pressure test, and then it's been epoxy coated on the outside. So we're probably good for at least another 10 years on that. It's still in pretty good shape. We've had concerns with when we get 6 inches of rain in 24 hours on water drainage. And the water drainage does back up in certain places. There's a little discussion going about culvert maintenance and clean out. And most of the culverts that have caused problems where they had trash in them and stuff, the end of the culvert is actually on the lot owner's property. I think it's a combination of, there's some owner responsibility to keep those cleaned out, but also the HOA can help with cleaning them out as well. To replace that culvert system and think that was going to solve the problem is we've got an overall drainage flow restriction that the county recognized on Ponderosa Drive a few years back and put in 2.5 culverts there because they were worried about it taking out the road. And even when they added those culverts to increase the flow, it still backs up. Because the flow off the property that goes all the way to 150 is not very fast, and that's the natural flow. So regardless of what we do, when we have that much rain in that short period, we're gonna have some ponding. There is some dirt work that needs to be done, like by the Scalafanes and on the north end of the northwest side of the runway, to where the grade of the ditch, or the drainage off that runway needs to be changed a little bit and cleaned out. And that will alleviate some of it, so it won't hold water for a week or two, and it gets soft, and of course the mower gets stuck in there and everything else. But the overall flow off that property is only gonna take so much water. And the county won't even let us do that, because they'd be concerned about flooding and taking out 150. If you go east of us on 150, there used to be a little lake off the left-hand side with a big dam there. And the state recognized that was a threat to the highway, and they made it drain it. So that's kind of where we're at on that. I think keeping our culverts clean. Where Robbie Young's at, he kind of narrowed that in there, which was interesting as well, where it comes out of the culvert, but the water itself is going to determine how wide that's going to be, one way or the other. So where we have construction and rock, we just have to watch it to make sure it doesn't get blocked up there and try to keep it flowing. But if you watch, when we did have a lot of rain, usually in 24 to 48 hours afterwards, it all drains away. It's just not very fast. So increasing flow on the upside isn't going to change, in my opinion, the flow out the property overall. So that's kind of where we're at with that. The Northwest Texas dirt work, we're still in process doing the work, sand. There by Tim Toll's place, we got a low spot still. That's just gonna take time to build that up. Combination of sand and red dirt. Same way on the north end, there's a little bit of area there, and I think the Steigers, he certainly has an understanding for the flow and what his drainage is off that property, and that's all gonna be ported to the north where it goes on the backside of J. Adams' place. That's the natural flow there. One of the things that we've got is a little procedural drift or process drift, and it has to do with dues and delinquent dues. And we work with people as best as we've been able to do, and if you go into Article 9, Section 7 is what basically dictates what takes place with delinquent dues. And so we're gonna go ahead and make those policies that's fair to everybody. People that think they can pay at the end of the year and everybody else is paying on a regular schedule isn't fair to everybody else. So the first payment is, your dues are due January 1st. The first payment has to be there by February the 15th, or it'll be considered delinquent. And there's payment options available. So if you're gonna pay monthly, quarterly, half, at the beginning of the year, let the HOA know what your payment schedule is, and then you'll be held accountable for that. And we can, if it comes to that, we can set up a schedule, depending on the payment plan, or we can propose a payment plan and have it printed and say, what payment plan are you gonna use? But we need to know that information at the beginning of the year. So the remedies for the association is, and according to the covenant, it says you're allowed, if someone becomes delinquent, they have to pay a penalty. So the maximum interest rate for penalties, and just like it would be on a credit card, in Texas is 18%. And so that'll be instituted. That's the number I looked and researched on, that's what we came up with. So we'll try to get, there's not a lot. 90% of the people do everything just right. We've got just a few that have played games with it. And so that party's over. The other thing that's good, and I did some research on this, it's if I don't like litigation is expensive. But this would be a small claim issue. And in the state of Texas, they were tired of expensive litigation for small claims court. So the limit now in Texas is $20,000. So if the bill is less than $20,000, it's a free form. You fill it out, take it to the county clerk and hand it to them, and there you go. And they'll make a judgment on it. And it's that simple. So there is some retort on that if they want to challenge it or whatever, that's fine, but that responsibility isn't gonna be on me or anybody else on the board.
Well, I think there's a huge oversight on my part. I thought they were just due by the end of the year. I didn't really realize that you're supposed to pay them every single month, so.
Well, you don't have to do it on a monthly thing. Some people pay it all at the beginning of the year when it comes due in January. Some people choose to pay it by the month, some by the quarter, some half at the first and half in July.
Gotcha.
So there are options. People can do what works for their budget,
Okay.
but they need to let the treasurer know.
And even if somebody misses a payment and becomes delinquent, I've contacted them and say, are you having to put food on your table or whatever, did you just lose your job, whatever, and we'll work with them. But that's drifting to where people think that's the norm, and so I just said, well, okay, but just like anything else, it's gonna be delinquent, and there'll be a penalty involved. A good friend of mine is involved in water wells and maintains water services to communities. It's amazing to me how much he made in reconnect fees. And some of these people did it every month. It'd be 2 days late, they'd go out there and shut their water off, and it cost them a lot of money to do a reconnect, and they did it every month. I can't fix that kind of stupid. So the bottom line is, we've got a procedure in here. I would like the board to make a motion and just say, we're gonna institute this January the 1st, even though, go ahead.
I was just gonna say about the litigation in the small claims court, I've done that a few times. You have to be there when they read or yours comes due, somebody has to be there,
And,
or it's just dismissed.
well, and that's changed, because I read the law last night, and they even have it now to where you can do it over the phone.
Oh, cool, okay.
So I was surprised because in this article that I read, and I went through all the 50 states, is it gave, in Texas, they just said Texas got it right. Because they didn't like the fact that there was so much litigation and all this stuff going on. So there's a lot of options available to us as far as how that has to go. It used to be able to be done right here at the JOP.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that's at for the small claims side of it. I don't know, GT, do you know it? You guys, does the JOP still do small claim stuff here?
Yes.
Okay, so we've done it once, and we just went down and talked to the GOP, and it was settled right there, so. But you're right, representation is key, and it can be any member or representative of the HOA
Well, I
board.
just was, if somebody needs to be in
Yeah.
charge.
And I think that's, I might be able to work that into my schedule with all the other retired people, so. So I would entertain a motion from the board just to say that they would approve this policy, which is basically just a reflection of the covenants to be active January the 1st of 2024.
I'll second that motion.
So it's on the floor to make this policy and procedure active January the 1st, and by whatever I call it, acclamation or by proclamation, it's approved. So we'll send notification out with an explanation. I think we may have to come up with a letter that shows the options and explain the whole thing and just kick that out. As a segue into that is, has anybody accessed the website or Robert Lard's information off the web? There's all kinds of stuff on there. I mean, everything. And then he switches, today this video will be on YouTube, so for the people that aren't here, they can watch the meeting on YouTube. And I think we're gonna try to get Robert to send out a blast mail with all the information concerning the website and how you can access the information. And if you need to know something, all the financial reports are there, anything that goes on in these meetings is there. So it'll open up a line of communication for all the property owners as well. We still have concerns about mailboxes on Ponderosa Drive. That's still ongoing because it is a taxiway. We're working to figure out exactly how we're gonna solve that. Feral hogs. Well, I hadn't seen any hog or heard anything about hogs lately. However, Jay Adams has been seeing them. Hal Frushneck, who's not a member, but he's a neighbor, he's killed 5 just in the past week. So if you see any hogs out there before they get to the runway, let somebody know and we'll try to take care of that one way or the other. It's a sport for Jay, so if you hear gunshots, I heard gunshots this morning, so maybe somebody was killing hogs this morning, I don't know. But what I did experience, Greg, you probably remember this, when the hogs tore up the north end of the runway.
Oh, yeah.
And that was almost 1,000 feet of runway that tore up.
Yeah, that house, clearing that out and having the big house there helped huge.
Yes,
He's the perfect neighbor.
yes, yes. So Hal's got a hog trap. We've had hog traps down there by Jay's. Jay's more than happy with all his instrumentation to take those hogs out as well. The coyotes were a problem, and then the construction east of us kind of shut them down for a while, and then that slowed down. Now the coyotes are starting to filter back in a little bit.
Yeah, I remember when Beetle spent like 3 nights up there on his balcony and never saw a hog. Winter's tearing them all up.
Yep. Didn't have his infrared binoculars. So new business, we did open up the south end of the runway on the east side, and that's a 40-foot spread there that I made. It still needs some work we'll probably have to put a culvert in there, but there was a request to get access to both ends of that runway, which makes sense.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And I concentrated a lot of sand on that because that's a really rough section, and it's a lot better than it was. Some of the edges over by Great Ship a little deep, but we'll get that all smoothed out, and that'll be another access on that end of the runway. We already talked about the water well.
Speaking of the south end of the runway.
Oh,
the-
yes.
We have the little flower bed down there that has been neglected for a lot of years. So there are several of us that are, willing and, want to do something about that. Mount Postal Bay being one of those. So the thought is to take those 3, or however many holly bushes out that are there, because they
I
send
trimmed
all
them back.
these,
I
and
got
they're filling back
Fixed
in.
it. The root structure of those holly bushes is gonna be the challenging part. I had a bid to have a guy come in there for $700 to do it, and I said, I'm not spending that much money on a guy just to come in there and try to dig it all. Plus there's, the other challenge is there's watering system in there that nobody
Yeah.
exactly knows. I know more about it now than I did.
Yeah, we gotta
But,
get the watering system in that bed back running, because it's,
Yes.
I don't know.
So the watering system needs to be corrected, and then we'll get those 3 stumps that are in there before they start growing too much again, and get those cleared out.
And then put some new things in there to
And we
make
can
it
put some
look
new
nice,
things in
and,
there.
if we can find somebody reasonable to come and maintain it, unless there's somebody in the HOA that just wants to do that,
Yeah.
so, anyway.
So that's an ongoing process on that particular part.
Okay, now you can go on from the south end.
So we were talking about voting rights and what is a member in good standing. And it's not very clear. If you want to look at the covenants on that and try to figure out, because it came down at one point in time, I was told that if somebody wasn't current on their dues, their voting rights were null and void. But I can't find that anywhere, and I'm not too sure if that's true or not. Quite frankly, it doesn't bother me one way or the other. But that was just something that came up, and I think the key thing is with this new process for the dues and getting people on the same track and being fair to everybody, I think that'll solve that issue all the way around. And do you have results?
Thank you, Casey.
Pat Rasco, our secretary, illustrious secretary, is going to provide us with the election results. You can read it.
Lynn Nelson is the president. Mitch Inman is the vice president. I'm the secretary. The treasurer is Cindy Nelson. The directors are, Jay Adams, Eric, and Mike Ross. That's Jay Adams, Eric Herzog, and Mike Ross. And that's it.
And he's already left, so I guess he signed it and it's certified and,
And it's taken care of.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any of the property owners present have questions? Yes, ma'am?
Do all the construction signs around the neighborhood, are they all on private property? all on HOA property or somebody's private property?
They're on private property.
Okay.
Actually, it's interesting, if you wanna know where your private property actually goes, to the center of the roads. Now, the county maintains it, but your property, and then the next query that is always the challenge as far as the setback is where the pins are. So those provides, particularly on Ponderosa Drive, those pin setbacks is what provides the clear way for the taxiway. So that's the challenging part right there. That's why originally did I have my mailbox next to the road? Yes. But when we started getting more people over there, I told Jim Bile, I said, I'll move it, and that's what I did. I moved it back and put a concrete pad in there. So it's actually lined up with the pin, the property line pins. That's where they're supposed to be, for the clear way. And we're gonna come up with a solution. Everybody knows, I've informed them that we've gotta come up with some type of a solution. And we've looked at community mailboxes, setbacks, whatever it takes, so that a high-wing airplane can maneuver down through there. A low-wing airplane is gonna be a real challenge. And, the county is, and the road maintenance is county, and it seems like the only way that you can get them to move is if everybody in the community starts sending them letters and complaining. And that goes to the county board, and sometimes they'll move on it, sometimes they won't. I mean, some work got done, but there still needs to be work again. We certainly have a big enough tax base out there to justify some improvement on the roads, you would think, so. Anyway.
Well, the width has gotten a lot narrower as it erodes away.
And so that's another issue on weed control along the edges of the roads, and I'll be spraying those dumb things again, because it gets out there and breaks that asphalt apart. Now, for those of you that haven't been here for 20 years, it was originally red dirt with iron ore on it. So you got muddy every time you went, you drove through the place, so we've improved it a little bit.
Yeah, for a long time, it was paved in front of they did in front of my house around there, and going towards your house was still,
Yeah, it's still red dirt, iron ore, yeah.
yeah.
So, well, if nobody's got any additional questions, I would entertain a motion to close.
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
I think it's unanimous. Y'all have a blessed
Yeah.
day.
You too. Appreciate everybody's